What's going on, Guff Gang? My name is Zachary Maziars, and I am here to bring you our Week 16 rankings that are going to help you win your fantasy championship. These rankings are serious, unlike my t-shirt right now. But before we get into that, how about hitting that subscribe button down below for more rankings, start sits, and we are even going to be posting in the off season just about the 2021 season coming up and a recap of 2020 season. So that way you can stay ahead and win your leagues next year. So go follow us on Twitter though, also at GrownUpFF for more content that we post all the time on there. So let's go ahead and get right into this with some Week 16 sleepers before we get into the rankings. So on this sleepers list, any of these could really end up in the top 20 or even somewhere in the top 10. So on the sleepers list, we have Russell Gage, Marquise Brown, Marvin Jones, Marquez Valdes-Scantling, Robbie Anderson, Curtis Samuel, Amari Cooper, Antonio Brown, and Deontay Johnson, okay? So those are our sleepers. Russell Gage, he would be a sleeper if Julio's out this week, so we'll see what happens there. Marquise Brown has had double-digit points in his last 4 weeks, but I would still be very beware of this one and be cautious just because it's Marquise Brown. Marvin Jones just came off a 22-point performance and is facing the Buccaneers defense, who are 25 against the receiver, so he could have a big day there. We also have Marquez Valdes-Scantling, who's coming off a dud, but he's a boomer or bust, and he's facing the Titans D, who's 30th against the receiver, so he could have a big boom game. Amari Cooper has a tougher matchup this week, but talent-wise, he is great. You just can't really predict what's going to happen with this Cowboys offense. Honestly, if Zeke plays, I think I would trust Amari Cooper more just because I feel like Zeke has been very inefficient and not produced well, so they would have to rely more heavily on the pass attack with Zeke in there. Flip side with Tony Pollard. Antonio Brown also is rising. The Bucs aren't looking too hot recently, so it could be another game, even though it's against the Lions, who have one of the worst defenses where they have to stay in it. Robbie Anderson and Curtis Samuel are huge boom potentials, but I already have DJ Moore in the top 20, and having 3 Panthers receivers in the top 20 is And then Deontay Johnson. Steelers are playing the Colts, who are number 10 against the receiver. Deontay has been the best receiver there as of late, but has had a case of the dropsies within the last couple of weeks, and the Steelers' offense just looks awful. So I could see a good day from him, but still not expecting a big things, I guess, and a high ceiling just because of the Steelers' offense. Well, okay, that's going to do it for our sleepers, but now moving into our top 20 rankings, let's go ahead and get started with number 1. So at number 1, we have Tyreek Hill. Hill is the Chiefs' just go-to. He's going against the Atlanta Falcons, who just surrendered 390 receiving yards to the Bucs. The Falcons also are not great, and Hill, any given week, can have one of his ceiling games, possibly a 50-pointer again. So in the fantasy championship, I am just very confident in Tyreek Hill and the Kansas City Chiefs. Number 2, we have Davante Adams. Adams had one of his worst games this season in Week 15. If you were actually one of those owners who had a stack of Rodgers and Adams, they would both have just combined for only 25 fantasy points for you in half PPR formats. So that's not what you want. But I'm expecting Adams to have a much bigger game this week against a bad Titans secondary. The Titans also have not the best run defense, but they have been fairly competent in several games against the running back. So basically what the hope is that the Packers are going to rely a little bit more heavily on the passing game with Adams than having to rely on the run game with Aaron Jones. Moving on to number 3, though, is Robert Woods. They go against the Seattle Seahawks, who rank the worst against the wide receiver position. This will be a good game, and although the last time they played off, Woods didn't really receive much volume in the passing game, I could see a shift this week in this game being a division matchup that is against the league's worst against wide receiver, where Woods gets a great volume and a great amount of the production. Number 4, we have Calvin Ridley. He's been showing that he is matchup proof, and possibly with no Julio, he is even more peppered with targets. So in a tough matchup against the Kansas City Chiefs, if Julio is out, I could still see Ridley cracking the top 10 no matter what happens. With Julio in, though, we'll see maybe a couple spots back. Number 5, we have Allen Robinson. Allen Robinson has Trubisky back, and all is good now for him. He's averaging 9.5 targets with him back, and they are facing against the Jaguars, whose secondary is just stinky and abysmal. I can see a big day from Robinson and the Bears, who are actually slowly starting to make another statement like they did earlier in the season. Number 6, we have DeAndre Hopkins. D-Hop has averaged 12 targets over the last 3 games this season. They are back to utilizing basically only him in the receiving game. And this game will be against the 49ers, who are middle of the road against the receiver. But I do trust D-Hop to outperform Richard Sherman in this game. Number 7 is Stefon Diggs. Diggs has been just fabulous as of late, along with the Bills' offense as a whole. He does have a foot injury, though, and is questionable, and is going up against Stephon Gilmore in New England. But I could still see a good game from him if he is healthy. He cranked out a 20-point game, or 20-plus point game against a tough Steelers secondary a few weeks back, so I could still see him doing well. He's still Allen's go-to, and it's great offenses that the Bills are looking like and showing as of late. The only thing that I think would really hamper Diggs would be his foot injury if they decide to sit him, or if it does cause him to be limited or on a snap count this week. Number 8 on our list, we have Chris Godwin. Now, Godwin had a decent game last week because it was saved by a touchdown against the Falcons, but he didn't receive a lot of targets or receiving yards. What's even more concerning was the depth of target that he received. But regardless, though, of who he is, regardless of those stats, he is facing against the Lions, who have a bad secondary. And he is showing in some games that he's the target leader with Brady, but then others is not. So I don't know. AB has affected Godwin the most with air yards and red zone targets as well. But AB also really hasn't converted on those except for this last week that they played. So I think this could be a bounce back game for Chris Godwin to get some good targets and a touchdown. Number 9, we have Mike Evans. Mike Evans, we can give basically the same arguments as Chris Godwin. We don't know really where the ball's going to be spread around. Really, it's going to come down to touchdown dependency on both ends, I feel like. But it's still a super beatable matchup against the Lions secondary, so one of them is going to go off. Number 10 is Julio Jones. Now, if Julio Jones plays, he will get targets. He needs to do well against a tough defense in this game. He did have plasma injections that are going to hopefully heal that hamstring up. So he really could play this week and the next week based on those injections, and that's kind of what he's wanting to do. But, this is Julio, so we can't really count him out and can't really rank him too low. So, the last game he actually came back from a hamstring injury and played. He went off completely, so we're going to see what happens here. Number 11, we have Cooper Kupp. Really, these are actually kind of the same rules that apply for Robert Woods. Both can be successful in this game as well, but I'm just projecting Robert Woods to have a little bit bigger of a game against Seattle than Cooper Kupp. Number 12, we have A.J. Brown. Now, A.J. Brown plays the Packers, who rank number 8 against the receiver this season, but Brown has actually averaged 15 fantasy points against top 10 defenses against the receiver this entire season. So he just has huge big play potential and upside. So that is why he is ranked so high and probably could be even higher than that against a tougher Packers defense. Number 13, we have Justin Jefferson. Thielen has actually played second fiddle to Justin Jefferson the last 2 weeks, and Jefferson's target share continues to just increase with each given week. He already has high air yards and depth of target, so now with his increased target share going up, even against a tougher Saints defense this week, I still think he should have a good day. Number 14, we have DK Metcalf. The last game against the Rams, DK was shut down completely with only 3 fantasy points that week. Him and Russ did miss on a deep connection that could have helped his fantasy day out, though. But, we can't count that. I don't think he will be shut down like he was the last time, but this is still the number 1 defense against the receiver. I do believe it will be a harder outing for him and a harder time, but hopefully we should see him score a touchdown and maybe have a good deep bomb from Russ. Number 15, we have Brandon Aiyuk. Aiyuk has been balling out since coming back, and he's just been amazing. And now that Deebo Samuel is out for the season, Aiyuk is the go-to target. He is the go-to receiver. He is super dynamic and the type of playmaker that they want to have in San Francisco. In the weeks he's played since week 7, he has not scored below 15 fantasy points. So I think he's going to have a great day. Number 16, Adam Thielen. Thielen still draws in the targets and the touchdowns. So in this game against a good Saints defense, we are kind of just hoping for that touchdown and the targets. We'll probably see Jefferson, honestly, with more of the yards, though, and possibly even more targets. So then it just becomes very touchdown dependent for Thielen. Number 17, we have Keenan Allen. Allen did put up a dud last week, and it'll be very hard to want to start him after that. But if you survived last week, I would play him this week. We have him ranked a little bit lower based on last week, but he's averaging 9.8 targets a game this season and is clearly Justin Herbert's favorite. They play the Broncos, who are just kind of middle of the road against the receiver in terms of defenses. It's a home game for the Chargers. And on top of that, Allen will be removed, I guess 1 week removed, more removed from that injury that could have hampered him last week and kind of resulted in that lack of production. Number 18 on our list, we have DJ Moore. Now Moore and the Panthers will be tough to predict, kind of, will it be Moore, Anderson, or Samuel having the better day? We don't know. But we know one thing, it won't be CMC. That's what we know. Moore's target share has increased over the last 4 weeks, though. He does play against a tough Washington defense, but he still has just incredible talent. And hopefully we'll be getting more and more involvement as the weeks go on, which will hopefully give him a decent game. Number 19, we have Terry McLaurin. Now, Scary Terry might be without Haskins this week, but there is optimism that Alex Smith does return this week. If he does, could see Terry McLaurin ranked a lot higher than this, even against a tougher Panthers secondary. But if Alex Smith doesn't return and Dwayne Haskins is out, this could be his ceiling right here at number 19. So we'll see what happens and to help with both of those QBs. Tyler Lockett is coming in at number 20 for us. So with DK Metcalf being covered by Jalen Ramsey, this could open things up for Lockett. Now, Russ has been underperforming in recent weeks, and Lockett's last game against the Rams, he only had 9 fantasy points. He did outscore DK Metcalf, though, but I would temper expectations in this. Anything could happen, though, with Lockett and this just incredible Seahawks offense with Russell Wilson at the helm. So, could see a big game because Jalen Ramsey is covering DK. But that's going to do it for today's video and our rankings. Thank you so much for watching. Leave a comment down below if you have any of these players. And if you haven't already, be sure to like and subscribe to this if you want to get more of this content. But without further ado, go grow up and get guffed.